Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome once again to another live stream. I hope the keen-eyed amongst you will recognise Hamish McLay, who works with me on this channel, IPSA Kind of Magic, on Property Quorum, which is tomorrow at 10 o'clock, shameless plug, and on Friday in Property Matters. But today we're talking about all things IPSA related, the Independent Property Search Association. Hamish, what are we talking about today?
Well, first of all, my apologies to anybody who tuned in at 12 o'clock sharp. Because of the fact that the NHS is out of control, it's sort of rather messed things up for me this morning, which put me behind time. So we're catching up. We're catching up now. Building control is one of those strange things, which is I don't know what I do know the reason, because people can monetize it. What's happening at the moment, local authorities are basically releasing their responsibility from building control and bringing in outside people and with them sort of setting up. I mean, let's speak about Hertfordshire Council, for example, because they were one of the, if you like, sensible ones. They weren't initially, but Hertfordshire, it started off. There's quite a number of local councils in Hertfordshire.
Right. Yes.
And they messed up because they started off with something like 4 of the councils melded together and sort of said they got this outsider to set up Hertfordshire building control. So the outside sourcing then was carried out, and then these guys, they wanted to charge, I think it was £36 for us to get the information, which we know should be freely accessible. After big arguments and sort of all going on, they've reduced it to £1.25, and they will send it to us. The trouble with sending it to you, or you looking it up, you don't necessarily know that you've got all of it. So there can be that error within it. But saying that, it's some councils, and this is why we brought this up, is building control out of control in many areas. We've got some challenges sort of going on, and basically, so it might be an idea to turn over to Paula, because Paula gets more involved with that sort of type of information, and she's been getting some information together on some blocks of flats, a property within these blocks of flats, which just happens to be called Royal Artillery Quays, the total flats there. And there's a particular property. Now, this is interesting, and I'll say this. This property was sold in April of 2019. The tenants or the owners of the flats were told in October 19 or September 19 that there was a issue, and the properties themselves were unsafe, and therefore remedial action needed to be taken, and therefore each of the residents would have to pay out £30,000 each.
What?
And there's three. Well, I say no, the residents weren't going to. There's about 350 flats, and they were going to have to pay out the money. They all were going to have to charge that to replace material which was substandard and put there by Barrett's. So what we decided to do, and I suggested, and Paula dropped everything and sorted this out this morning. So what came across with what you were doing, Paula?
Well, Paula, over to you. Barrett's name seems to come up in the frame rather often at the moment.
Yeah, you can't beat Barrett's. To be fair, when I looked into it, there is absolutely nothing in the planning and nothing in the building control about any works that have been done on that block of flats. On some of the properties, numbers came up, some building control, which, without digging too deeply into it, would have probably been things like windows, boilers, stuff like that. But
right.
Nothing on that specific flat came up. So if they've had remedial works done,
right,
why hasn't it come up? Why hasn't it come up in planning? Why hasn't it come up in building control?
Well, if it's not come up in planning or building control, that means that it's been done outside of. Well, I don't know. That puts it into a whole grey area, doesn't it?
I'd say that puts it into, excuse me, what's going on area.
All right.
Now, Hamish didn't explain to me about any of the remedial works or anything. He just asked me to dig into it, which I did. Straight into the website, easy to use, public access, not a problem. Put the postcode in, picked the flat number, double checked it was the right one, which it was. Nothing came up for that specific flat number. Nothing came up under the block. Nothing. You see, now I'm going to have to go and dig into it again later. I'm going to. My brain's now ticking over. I possibly could have missed something, but I don't think I did. But
so where else would you look? Is this your only port of call? Where else would you search?
That's the only port of call we've got, is whichever local authority is their publicly accessible registers, which, to be fair, in most of the councils aren't too bad. And the Greenwich one, which is the council,
right,
was easy, simple to use, same as every other site I've used on most of the councils in the country. I'm flapping. I'm going to go in and have another dig later, because I did it. I was asked to do, we're asked to do a search on a specific property, and that's what we do.
Well, is this a disparity like this?
It happens quite often.
Oh.
It can happen, especially if it's a block of flats. There's certain councils where you search for a block of flats, you get everything for the flats plus anything within a 10-mile radius. But that's a whole different story.
So, Hamish, what is poor Paula to do next?
Well, the unfortunate thing is we're totally reliant upon what information is readily available initially. And it's fortunate that Paula is able to, like she said, because Paula, she doesn't exactly wear an anorak, but she acts like one, because she will go, there has to be something here. So she will actually go and she will dig until she finds something. And if she can't find it, she'll phone up the council.
Right.
Say, why isn't there sort of something here? Why? Now, we're fortunate as well. Now, we used to cover the wondrous Greenwich many years ago, but we stopped doing that. In fact, Paula's mother would hurtle around, if you can hurtle. I'm not so sure hurtling was the right word, but she would visit the various councils up in London. And I'm sure Greenwich would have been one of those, because we covered all of them at one stage. So she would go into the offices and get the information. Now, we don't any longer do that. But what we would actually do, if a search came up normally for a property within Greenwich, we would ask somebody to carry out the search on our behalf. Now, some of you, if you happen to be listening there, would know that one of the best companies that you could ever ask to do a search through is Whitefield Legal Services.
Oh,
and
yeah.
some people there have actually appeared on our podcast previously.
They are an excellent couple of people they are.
So there's Barty and Sharon. Sharon particularly, she's a bit like Paula. She's the digger. so she will hunt things down there as well. So what we will do, the sensible thing we will actually do, and this is what's so good about being members of IPSA, we can actually sort of discuss with Sharon what indeed she would find and where is it. So, as I said, normally we wouldn't be daft enough to go and look for it. But what does happen, and this actually creates the distinction between what we do at IPSA, because we're an organisation of collaborators and we work together with each other. We're not competing. We don't need to. So basically, we can ask anybody within our organisation to have a little to carry out the work instead of us having to do it. So that's one of the great things about it. But I mean, obviously, what Paula does, and we cover. I'm not too sure what it's reduced to now, because many of the authorities that we used to work with, and this is causing a challenge, and it might also cause a challenge for the councils themselves. When they combine together, they decide we've got enough bodies here. In fact, we've got too many bodies for a unitary council, so they dispose of a few of them. And if they're doing it with the building inspectors, because building inspectors need to actually work out effectively what's going on, I do think they need to be taking closer looks at the type of thing that's going on in high-rise flats. And I'm rather thinking something which came to me sort of overnight almost. Do we need to actually get hold of their health and safety executive to start poking into, I say poking into, but put their views across relative to what's going on?
Wow. So you've got your work cut out for you, Paula. It sounds like this could cause a lot of sleepless nights if you can't dig to the heart of the problem.
I can get quite frustrated and annoyed, and the air can turn slightly blue in my house. Because if I'm digging, I know there's got to be something there. Why can't I find it?
Right.
And sometimes a lot of it can depend on how the council keep their records, how long the council keep their records for. A lot of them now will not go back more than 15 years. So if it's 16 years ago this happened, 16, 17, I'm not going to be able to find any of the information without either having to go into the office and dig through paper records, or send off an email request, faff about, 9 times out of 10, pay them. And then I can get the information I want, only to find out that they're actually not quite as relevant as I thought it was. So it can be frustrating, yes.
Hamish, is this the same up and down the country for all IPSA members? Are they often faced with this kind of almost nonsensical bashing your head against a brick wall if the evidence just doesn't appear to be there?
Well, I think every single member ends up bashing their head against a brick wall for all sorts of things relative to gathering that information. I suppose this is one of the amusing aspects of being able to use IPSA, because what we can do, we can say to somebody else, hey, can you go sort this out for us, please? Can you investigate this on our behalf? So when you do that, they bang their heads against the wall if it's a challenge, and we don't have to, because they'll send it back, and Paula will do a double check, because we always do that because of the way we actually sort of operate, because as I said, Paula will have a look at it and make sure everything's sort of right. And the great thing is, using IPSA members is very, very rare. It's a rare exception if they do actually sort of make an error. That's the great advantage of somebody using somebody in that locality to do the search work on our behalf.
I have a feeling we're returning to an old theme, Hamish, which is that geographical knowledge and localized knowledge can often trump an overall large-sized organization. You could use a factory conveyancing organization if you want, because you know they're everywhere, but they won't have local knowledge, and nothing beats that.
Well, they wouldn't know the need to dig.
Right, so they'd take the surface information and say,
exactly right, and they're not just only take the surface information. They do not refine the information, because sometimes there's too much information. I mean, Paula just touched upon it. This particular block of flats, had we gone to land registry for land charges, we would have had page after page after page of irrelevant information that was totally unnecessary, because it applied to however many flats happened to be in that particular sort of block, because they put them all down there, whether they apply or not. Now, one of the things which has happened, Barrett's put in if you like, they put in for planning permission to do something, and that the What in fact they wanted to do was take away materials that didn't actually exist on the property. Now, this is down in writing. They wanted to remove, I think it's, I can't remember, it's high risk laminate. They want to remove all the high risk laminate and replace it with something else. Now, it got passed. I don't know who passed it. Obviously, the people in the council passed this information. So now they have permission to go in there and replace non-existent material with something else and leave the high risk material, because high risk laminate is obviously that's a dangerous one as well. But they're not going to do anything, or they didn't request planning permission to replace the dangerous element of what's actually sort of inside that building, which we'll find out a little bit more about on Friday, because we've got some people who actually, somebody who lives in the block of flats to speak about it. But somehow or other, they put in a request for non-existent material and it's passed. They're allowed now to replace non-existent material. Now, who the hell in planning or whatever, I don't know how they go through this planning. We're not experts on these. We rely on them. So when you actually think about it, building control can go in and check. This will be an interesting one, because building control need to go in and check whether they've replaced this non-existent material, which could be an interesting thing to look at. So we'll keep a watch out for when it actually comes back with it. But it was only a few days ago, so it might well be that the records haven't moved on, Paula. That might be one of the reasons why you were unable to find them. But it is an interesting question. It's serious problems and needs to be treated seriously, which is why I think the health and safety executive ought to get themselves involved.
So if we're going to summarize it, would you say that using an organization like IPSA means you're always going to find a representative who has local knowledge and is more likely to dig that bit further to find the solution, the answer that you're looking for?
Absolutely. I mean, Paula just said it. She only looked up the information earlier today and she's not happy with it. So she's going to go back until she finds something.
I thought that being a Liverpool supporter as she is, she'd be used to disappointment. But...
Oh, low blow.
What do I know?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Let me just thank Hamish McLay of Search Convey and the redoubtable Paula Purnell, also of Search Convey. Thank you both for helping convey why it is useful to use members of IPSA. And to anybody watching, I would say, if you've got local searches and you want information, go for people who are experienced at searching that little bit deeper in the locality you need, rather than perhaps a one-size-fits-all company that's nationwide. But until next time, I thank you all for watching, and of course, Hamish and Paula and IPSA themselves. And I would say to all of you, keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and try and look after that mental health. Bye-bye now.